Blake, if you could magically give your wife a different accent, what would it be?
Well, if we could zero in on English, that would be fantastic.
Welcome to the Church Gear Podcast, where we pull the tech out of the booth and onto the stage to share the most outlandish stories and hidden wisdom from the tech trenches. And now, here are your hosts.
I'm your host, Blake Hodges, a man who has to use my Jeff Foxworthy dictionary to understand my country wife. And I'm here with my co-host who can't speak a leak. Oh my gosh. Can't speak a lick of country to save his life, Toby Walters.
Should I try my country accent? How is like you're a real hillbilly, Blake?
Toby, I crawled out of the hills this morning. I'll tell you that right now.
So when you say zero in on English, are you talking about English language or like are you talking a British accent?
Talking just to be able to speak American. I can't understand her, so country. It's taken me 10 years to get used to this.
Yeah. I think, studies show, at least among the American population, that Australian is the number one accent and then British is number two.
What we like?
Yes.
Okay.
Like favorite. I know I've read before that like a British female voice is the most calming to the American population. So they often recommend, like, if you have a British female that can be your customer service agent, it naturally calms people down. It's fascinating. And also in sales, like we just want to buy because they sound smarter. Let's be honest.
Interesting. I think we just like the novelty.
Yeah. So just this past weekend, I went out to Dallas for my niece's wedding. So we're marrying off the next generation now in the Walters
Isn't your
family.
niece like 19?
21.
Okay.
I know. It still seems pretty young.
Get married young in the South.
Yeah. And well, first of all, we had it almost like doubled as a family reunion.
It was a shotgun wedding, wasn't it, Toby?
No, it was not. So family
it's
reunion.
Texas. Everyone had a shotgun.
And I warned some of my family that I would be talking about them on the podcast because, when the Walters family gets together, like just, you can imagine, Blake. But I'll just give a shout out to my cousin Dina because she said she loves listening to the podcast. She doesn't know anything we're talking about, but she thinks we're really funny. So that's kind of how
she was hit in the head as a child, wasn't she?
As all Walters were. But back to the wedding. So my niece married a South African.
Okay.
And he's actually half South African, half American. His dad was an American pastor who went out to South Africa. And so he actually can talk in both accents. It's fascinating.
That's incredible.
Yeah. So he learned English growing up from his dad, and Afrikaans is the language.
Now, do you mean he could speak both languages or both accents?
Both.
The accents is wild.
I know. So it was fun just to talk. Like his family came out as well from South Africa for the wedding. And so we had just recently met a couple South Africans at Philo who are at a big church, Moraletta Church in South Africa. And it turns out my niece's, in-laws live just a few miles and know a couple people on staff of the church. So it was really cool to get like kind of a global church conversation going and feel like I know like the tiniest percentage of like common sense to talk about it. Whereas before I didn't know anything about the global church, I feel like.
I mean, this whole podcast is just the tiniest sense to talk about it. It creeps me out the older I get how small world everything really is. You connected to South Africa twice in the span of a couple weeks. That's wild.
Yeah. And so my niece's husband's sister is a worship leader at her church in South Africa. And it's not a very big church. And it was just funny to hear her talk about the common issues they have. And she says it's every Sunday something goes wrong. A cable breaks or a microphone's not working. And I'm like, oh, this is like a global issue. It's not, how we get so short-sighted as Americans thinking like,
we're the whole world.
Yeah, we are the world. It was just fascinating to hear like there are probably millions of churches all around the world that deal with production issues. And hopefully a few of them are listening to this episode and can glean a little wisdom. I wouldn't say wisdom from you and I, but
no, we import our wisdom. We
import the wisdom.
Now we do have a tariff on our wisdom now since we import it, and it will.
Wait, did you hear that a judge just blocked the tariffs this morning?
All of them?
All of them. Well, most of them. They said this was an overreach, and so we're blocking them. So, I mean, this could all change by the time this comes out, but I was like, that's fascinating.
Every morning it changes.
Yeah, every morning it changes. So,
well, speaking of something that doesn't change, we are bringing in now the import of our wisdom, Brian Coleman, the executive pastor of administration at Covenant Church in Carlton, Texas.
Carrollton.
Sure, great. Depends on your accent. And Zach Stone, the media director. Welcome, boys, to the podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great to be with you.
Now, Zach, you may have known a little bit what you're getting yourself into with this podcast episode, but Brian, I feel like, did Zach warn you about Blake and I ahead of time?
Well, clearly he didn't tell me enough because I'm here, but I have an idea.
He's going to hang just fine.
I love this. And, just to give our listeners a little context, we're doing a series of executive pastor and production leader. And we've heard, many, many times over the year that can often be a contentious relationship, because I feel like the executive pastor has to hold the hard stuff, like the money stuff and the budget and a lot of that stuff. And then the production guy is always like, give me more money, I need more gear. So I know we're dumbing down that relationship issue, and I'm very excited to talk to real executive pastors and production leaders in this series. So this will be fun, Blake.
Yes, I agree. And at the end, we've got a pitch for Zach to pitch Brian on his next upgrade.
Yep.
No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding.
All right. So, Brian, let's start with you. Can you give us just a little bit of your background, how you got into your ministry role today, and also just a little bit of background on Covenant Church?
Yeah, great. It's so good to be with you guys. I have been a part of Covenant Church since 1992. My wife and I joined when we were in our late 20s, and we were members of the church for about 10 years before our founding pastor, Mike Hayes, invited me on staff to serve as his executive assistant. It's really kind of funny, too, because just the year before, I was talking with an elder at our church about a frustration that I was feeling that every time Pastor Mike would have an idea for a big project, it's like it would just kind of disappear. And I told our elder, I said, man, he needs a make it happen guy. And about a year later, I got the call. So I've been the make it happen guy since 2001. My role has evolved since coming on as his executive assistant. The Bible is true again. It says a man's gift makes room for him. And so many additional areas of responsibility began to be added to me, including now things like IT, finance, HR, legal, insurance, all of the back office things that everybody needs but nobody wants to do. I get to be the make it happen guy.
Yeah.
Brian, you need to stop being so wildly competent. They keep throwing stuff at you.
And maybe it's until I say uncle, and I haven't said uncle yet, but it's been a lot of fun, and I'm really enjoying. I'm really just honored to be a part because I believe in the work that God is doing here.
And how long has Covenant Church been going?
It was founded in 1976, so we have our year of Jubilee coming next year. It was founded by Pastor Mike Hayes and his wife as independent, non-denominational church. So we have grown over the years into a multi-site organization, and it takes great people like Zach to help make that happen. And we just continue to expect that we're going to be planting more churches. We've begun to have a bit of a trend in the last 5 to 10 years where we will raise up a campus and then hand it to the campus pastor. So we are now with only 2 campuses. At one point in our zenith, we had about 11 campuses, and those are now mostly independent churches, and it has been really working out well for us. We have a vision to add another campus in the very near future, and I'll be excited to see what God has in store for that. We want to keep saying yes every time God says to move and to do something, and we just keep trusting, and He has continued to bless.
And are all those, campuses and now autonomous churches, are those all like Dallas, Fort Worth, greater area, or are you guys going further than that?
All with the exception of one campus in Flagstaff, Arizona, which is our hometown of our founding pastor. It was a church building that he and his father built when his father pioneered a church in the 50s and 60s. Yeah. And we bought it about, 15, 20 years ago, and redeemed it and made it a church, put a campus pastor in there, and then handed it to him about 8 years after it started. And they're still going strong.
Awesome.
When he says put a campus pastor in there, I like to imagine they locked him in there. Like you live in this building, sir.
Uh-huh. It's a lifetime commitment.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's right. Be careful what you ask for.
Zach, give us a little bit of your background. How'd you get your start and end up at Covenant?
Sure. I always grew up loving audio. My dad was in a Southern Gospel quartet in Indiana. And so from the age of 4, he would have me mix, which was a mini Trek and 2 microphones. But I just fell in love with it. And time again, people would take me under their wing and let me learn and do things through the church, through all the churches that we visited. So I just kind of stumbled on this as a career. Never thought it was possible because the churches I grew up in were small, that nobody was paid, everybody's volunteer. But I met my wife, who's come here since she was a teenager, I think, and got introduced to the big church world and fell in love. I mean, it's an honor to do what I get to do. So I get to mix on Sundays and lead our production team during the week. And I've been here coming on 10 years now. So it's great.
Zach, this Dwight photo that you have hanging up behind you is incredible. And I'm just going to go ahead and put this on our story right now. I mean, that is wild.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah. And if any listeners are not aware of the fact that Blake is Dwight Schrute, now is your moment that you're joining the conversation. So it's funny, like Dwight is staring back at Dwight. This is fascinating.
Yeah.
Just like looking into a mirror.
Yep. All right, Brian. So I feel like the title of executive pastor is this mysterious world where it can mean any number of things and nobody knows what it actually means. So, maybe give us a quick snapshot of, I think you kind of covered the job duties, but how do you describe the spirit of your role at Covenant?
Yeah, it is more of the traditional, original executive pastor role. I realize that there are a lot of different positions now that have executive pastor in the title, that have other pastors reporting to them, and they're more ministry focused. Whereas the first introduction to the title of executive pastor, of which I was aware, was specifically for the administrative pieces of the ministry. It would be very easy just to call the position the chief operating officer, but the position in which I'm serving has with it a spiritual leadership responsibility in addition to the administrative, because we believe that you can both be kings and priests in the house. And so I have the opportunity in my role not only to oversee the administrative needs of the ministry, but also the occasion to teach and to lead chapels. We've got a men's monthly breakfast that I have the privilege of teaching at next week, and I'll be speaking at one of our campuses at the end of June. So I know that can oftentimes be rare when you're talking about the administrative side of ministry, but we realize that for any leadership role in the church, we need to be able to carry the love and the hope of the gospel to everyone we come in contact with. So I have an opportunity to minister and be an example to all of our vendors, to all of our support people, all of our volunteers. And I don't take that responsibility lightly, but I am also very grateful for the administrative background that I have. I graduated with a business degree from the University of Texas at Austin and spent 15 years in the corporate world while a member of Covenant Church, the last 10 as a member of Covenant Church, before Pastor Mike brought me on the team to grow my role. And I don't take lightly that responsibility to both be a priest and an administrative person in the house.
And living in Tennessee now, when everybody says UT, now me having lived in Austin for 6 years, I'm like, I know who the real UT is. Go Horns.
You sound like one of my close friends who's from Nashville. And I have heard the term, the original UT, the first UT, the real UT. And it's kind of hard when you got there first, you get bragging rights. So I understand.
Toby, I'm about to kick you out of Nash Vegas if you don't assimilate better.
Blake, you don't even know college teams. You don't follow college football at all.
Toby, who graduated college out of two of us?
Who's your boss?
Not you. You hired someone else.
Good point. So either Brian or Zach, if you want to answer this question, what's kind of your lead pastor's vision for production at Covenant, or the church's vision? Like, where does it kind of fall as a priority for the church? Are you very forward thinking with production, or is it more of just supporting the other ministries of the church?
I would love to hear Zach's take on this question.
Sure.
No. No.
No, it's not bad. So as Pastor Brian said, we're 50 years old, and our current senior pastor is the daughter of our founder. So the best way I can describe it is we want to stay modern. We want to have excellent services and excellent outward facing things, but we want to honor the past. We want to honor where we come from. So if you ever get a chance to visit our church, it's a gorgeous building. Our sanctuary has, I think it's called Austin Stone. It's a very old looking building, but with like beautiful lights that illuminate it, and giant LED walls and a great PA. So we kind of try to marry the two of being honoring to the past, but modern and relevant. So I wouldn't say we're modern and flashy, but we are. Excellence is definitely a high priority, and we will invest where it's necessary to make sure that stays excellent.
Yeah. Brian, do you often feel like the gatekeeper, so to speak, between your lead pastor's vision and the rest of the staff?
In certain areas, sure. In other areas, though, I feel like my responsibility is not so much to be the gatekeeper, but to be the steward of that, to ensure that we are and maybe that's perhaps what you intended with the question. But yes, I do want to make sure that the direction and the purchases, the decisions that we make are consistent with the vision of our pastor, knowing the DNA and the values of our ministry and what we're trying to convey. We've been broadcasting our services on the internet since the early 2000s. And but even before we had multiple campuses, it was kind of sick and vacation broadcast, right? For people to be able to watch who weren't able to be there. And we still do that to this day. It was very fortunate that we had that in place before COVID, so that when we had to pivot to broadcast only, we were already there. And so we want to make sure that the vision of our pastor is clearly received and experienced by the people who are watching online as well. That's one of the reasons why we have a dedicated mix for the online broadcast, to ensure that it is the best that it can possibly be for the people who are watching. And it's not just folks who couldn't make it that weekend. We have people watching in almost every state in the union and about 15 countries around the world on a regular basis. And we will continue to do that in order for everyone to experience the excellence and the presence of God in wherever they happen to be watching.
Anybody in South Africa?
Actually, we do. We do have some folks watching in South Africa.
Nice. All right, so I'll throw a kind of what if scenario, and Zach, maybe you even have a better real world example, but a big expense that's coming up that's outside of your operational budget. Let's say your video router is starting to give you issues, and Zach, you're thinking like, we need to replace this thing. It's going to be $60,000, and you approach Brian with that conversation. How does that go between you guys?
Yeah, I don't know how any other churches are, but I am extremely blessed. I need to give flowers where flowers are due, that I have Pastor Brian as my oversight for these budgetary things. I've never had, the reality is the importance to our lead pastor is to clearly get the word out. And so if something Sunday critical goes down, it doesn't matter if it was within our budget or not, it has to be fixed. And that's always been the take that I've gotten from Pastor Brian. We will find a way. We'll make it work. Whether that's a rental or a replacement, either way, we'll make it work. So luckily, I have not had a difficult conversation with Pastor Brian when it comes to that. Now, when I'm dreaming and I just see something cool, that's a different conversation. But typically, what Pastor Brian is known for is always saying yes. That's literally how he's known in the organization. And so when he says no, you know that there's a valid reason and I need to find another way. So it makes it easy to accept those tougher conversations, because I know that it's not just because that there's always a deeper, higher purpose for it. So it makes it easier to work harder and find the right solution.
Blake, can you imagine having an exec pastor or a leader here that like, that's the yes guy? I'm always going to go to the yes guy. Brian, how'd you become the yes guy? I feel like most production people, kind of the cliche is my exec pastor is the no guy.
Yeah, well, I'm the make it happen guy. And our relationship, Zach and mine, is built on trust. I know he's not going to come to me with something frivolous that is just a nice to have. an itch he wants to scratch and thinks that, hey, what better way to do that or add that to my resume, by pushing for it for Covenant. I know he's going to bring to me the things that he deems are absolutely necessary. And I always look at those needs from the perspective of cost and timing. I mean, we meet each year when we do our budgets to plan out not only our expense budget, but our capital budget so that we can do any of the upgrades that are needed and we can plan those out. But what we do when it is time to execute on one of those capital items is do a sanity check and make sure that the budget year is going as we expected. And is this a good time to do that? So if there's ever a no, it's never a no. It's a, hey, not yet. Let's wait until after summer. Let's wait till the summer slump is over before we do that. But fortunately, we're doing enough planning so that we already know what those priorities are, and we're already anticipating the expenditures necessary to do those. And I trust Zach. He is very good at what he does, and he is a very, very frugal person that is not going to ask for things that are not necessary. But when something breaks, we want to make sure we're in the position to move quickly. And that's why we try to keep enough reserves for the unexpected to ensure that we can absorb any big ticket item that, unbeknownst to us, or unexpectedly failed. The good thing about working with someone like Zach is that he is always looking at the useful life of the equipment and making plans for us to do the upgrades that when they are before they are actually needed in time, so that we can make sure that the timing for that will work out well for us budget wise.
And it sounds like you guys have worked together for over a decade. Was it always not contentious, or was there a building process where you guys had to build up trust before it started to be, very easy conversations around purchasing?
Well, Toby, it was all those sanity checks they were stacking up, I mean, eventually that built that relationship.
Yeah, they cashed it in.
Yeah. I would say our relationship was built more because I didn't come on as a media director. I came on as a part-time audio guy and just kind of stuck around, and positions opened up and people saw stuff on me and brought me up through the ranks. So, I think the cool part about Pastor Brian and I's relationship is it kind of built more, from a ministry side than a, hey, I need this from you side. So I got to kind of see him in the weeds of ministry. And I began to trust him in that. And then, as I kind of came up through the ranks, if you will, I saw what I liked previous leaders do and what I didn't like previous leaders do. And I was able to just kind of adapt and, figure that out. And it's never been lost on me that the reality of anything I ask for purchase wise is being paid for by the single mom in the seats. And I don't want to overreach or poorly steward the little bit that somebody is trusting God with, because I wouldn't be able to live with myself. So I always try to keep that in in the front of my mind. And I think that's just helped us build trust together. So I don't think we've ever had a contentious battle for trust. I think it's just kind of grown naturally with relationship.
Yeah, I would agree. Zach has, as he said, he has grown through the ranks. His gift has made room for him, and he has been a very trustworthy guy. And I love also the way that he approaches the planning for the upgrades and the things that we need by presenting not only what he would like to do, but why that he believes it's necessary, what it's going to position us to do in the future. And we're able to evaluate that together with, of course, me deferring to his judgment on, is this the right brand? Is this the right model? Is this the best price? I mean, I may ask some questions that are designed just to draw out of him the research that he's done, but never to question, have you made a good decision here? But just to be able to help me to understand what it is that we are accomplishing by what he's recommending and why it's necessary, which allows us then to do that together and to find the right timing for when those things need to be done.
Brian, what are some pet peeves or even, memories of previous staff members who approach you with asks that they just did it the wrong way? It frustrated you. It gummed up the works, so to speak? What are some of those pet peeves?
Yeah, there are some. I would say the biggest one is when someone shows a blatant disregard for their budget and finds themselves in a situation and then comes begging forgiveness. I would rather us work together to find a way to say yes through asking permission than to try to pivot and recover from somebody coming begging for forgiveness because they have shown a just disregard for their budget. That's definitely not Zach. I mean, some of his predecessors did, and they would try to trump the request with, our senior pastor really wants this. They really need this. They've been talking about this. You don't have to name drop here, bro. I'm all in. And that's Zach. That's not Zach's MO. But we'll have worked with people who, when they would feel like their presentation wasn't going as well as they had hoped, then they try to trump it with the name drop, as if I wasn't aware of who they're working for and what we're trying to accomplish together.
I feel like if you're working at a church, if you want to name drop, you should name drop Jesus. Nothing trumps Jesus's plan for this budget money, right, Blake?
I love you talking about someone blatantly, overspending on their budget, because in our last leadership meeting, one person on our team had just blown past their budget. Everyone else had done a great job. And he's sitting right here.
Yeah, and blown past his budget is grossly overstated. But yes, technically I was the only
I'm just
one over
reporting
budget.
What the finance guy said,
Brian, have you ever struggled with staff members that come to you and just feel like they're not aware of the context of the greater church? They're just focused on their ministry area, and you have to kind of educate them like, look, everybody has ministry needs. It's not just your area.
Yeah, of course. That definitely happens because, we want people in positions of leadership who sincerely believe that the task that God has given them is vital to the kingdom. I don't want someone who is just kind of lukewarm about what they're doing. I want someone with passion. And so it does occasionally happen where someone gets a bit of tunnel vision, not intending to a bit kind of silo themselves a little bit because of the importance of what they're doing. And it often does become necessary to try to remind them of the bigger picture and where this is falling, not to try to humble them back, but to give them the right perspective that they really should be using to view the things that they are doing and the things that are going on around them as well. When we do create our capital improvement forecast and budget, we will then prioritize, because many of those capital items will come from different departments. We'll prioritize which ones are going to have the not only the biggest impact to the ministry, but has the shortest timeline needed or required for us to accomplish it. And we'll try to identify priority. For example, we do not like being on equipment that is outside of its warranty period. We like to be able to make calls and to get support. So if there's the risk of a piece of equipment being sunset, that moves it to the top of the list for us to do, because we want to make sure that we're able to continue to partner with the vendors and suppliers if there's the need for that. So, it does become sometimes necessary to help people realize where our priorities are currently lying. And the good news is that everyone on our team is in the role that they're in because they have demonstrated a commitment to the greater whole, a commitment to moving the kingdom forward. And they recognize the role that they play, the importance of it, and the value that they place in it is critical, but they recognize that the role that they play is just one part of the symphony. And it's when people are always wanting the solo that it becomes a problem. We want to be an orchestra.
Yeah.
Toby, if their gear sunsets, would our gear just have like the midnight sun? I mean, our gear is a little older than sunset. Is it, 2 a.m.?
And they sunset a lot of gear to
church gear.
Yeah. And and maybe Brian, you don't know this because you're in the air conditioned office, but Zach had us come in, I don't know, it was July or August, and it was 107 degrees, and all that gear was in a storage unit, and so we had to be working outside a lot. So Zach, I'm just throwing shade back your way that you nearly killed us.
it was rough.
Toby, you did that yourself. You went to Texas in the summer, you crazy man.
Well, I sent our guys to load up the gear because I
You
had church
didn't
visits.
even
I
do
had
it.
church visits. I was there. I was physically
your
in
money.
Texas.
Mm.
Zach, talk to us about what was the most recent major upgrade you guys did with production.
We upgraded our D show to Rivage, to Yamaha Rivage. Obviously, if you know anything about D show, it was well past its warranty period. That console was going on 15, 17 years old, something like that. So we already have K2 L-Acoustic K2 rig, and in my opinion, the best marriage on earth is Yamaha and L-Acoustics. I think it just sounds like heaven on earth. So that's what we went with, and I love it.
Toby, you and Shelly just had the gauntlet thrown down. The best marriage is not you two. It's what Zach just said.
No, my nickname is Yamaha, and hers is L-Acoustics. It's fine.
That's right.
I'm going to text her that right now to confirm.
So, Zach, I remember visiting you guys and seeing the D show, and it was, like you said, it was 15 plus years old, but it still looked in pristine condition. Did you guys intentionally care for it well to get it to last longer, or did you just luck out?
Oh, no, absolutely. We value what we have. Like it's, we're very fortunate, from the production side, we're very fortunate to work with what we have. We always have, near top of the line, gear. So we try to care for that as best we can. So we keep dust covers on them and, keep them teched and serviced. And we got good life out of that console. It sounded great. But it was time to move on.
Yeah. And how long had you guys been planning for that expenditure?
So we started conversations about a year and a half in advance, and then because of COVID, the timeline was wild because of the stock and the limited stock that there was. So it took us about 2.5 years to actually land it and get it installed. But we started talking about it about a year and a half before we pulled the trigger.
Toby, you should ask Zach what dirt he has on Pastor Brian that he used to get that budget approved for such a nice piece of gear.
Yeah.
Yeah, Zach has some unexplainable favor.
So you guys worked with
never had to trumpet with "the Lord hath need of it." So
that's what it was.
Great.
Nice. A man with a beard like that, you just intrinsically trust.
And that deep
says.
voice,
It's,
yes.
Yeah.
It's intimidating. I know. Yeah.
So you guys work with our friends at House Right doing that upgrade. I know very specifically asking Luke from House Right one time, when's the right time to plan the expenditure of your next thing? And he says, when you installed the current thing. So, I mean, maybe you're not thinking about when you're going to upgrade your console next, but when do you guys start planning for, gear lasts 10 to 15 years, if it's the right thing? When do you guys start thinking about, we need to have money set aside to upgrade this in X amount of time?
Yeah, that's the way, I'll tell you this, the way House Right earned our business really was they did have the best price, but that wasn't the main thing. The main thing was, before we ever talked about upgrading consoles or doing any work together, Luke came and sat with me for an afternoon. And because you don't know what you don't know. So being new into this media director role, he taught me how to budget. He taught me how to present to Pastor Brian, people sitting in seats like him, where we're at with our gear and the timeline that we need to upgrade it. So he shared with me a CapEx template and walked me through it. And so I started going through all of our gear. So now that's how we do it. Every year we sit down and we look at each room, how old the gear is, how it's functioning. And I just kind of put it back in Pastor Brian's hands to say, hey, this is what we need. This is the timeline I think we're on. You tell me when to hit go. And I just stay ready. I just keep, I probably every 3 months reach out to several integrators and get prices on things just to make sure I'm ready. If we hit go or if disaster falls, I'm ready to hit go on whoever has the gear that we need.
Yeah. And what would you say is the next major upgrade that's, on the plans for you guys?
Yeah, our video system. Right now we're all Blackmagic. It's if you're familiar with Blackmagic, it's a love-hate relationship. Great quality. We have stretched it as far as we can. But it's for the next level that our senior leadership wants to go. That's going to be the next big upgrade is just retrofitting the whole thing.
Yeah. And so, choosing HouseRight specifically, or choosing the integrator that you work with, how do you guys handle that decision between the two of you? Zach, is that your call? Is it Brian's call? How do you guys manage that?
So far, it's been my call. At the end of the day, I'm the one who, whether they fail or not, it's on me. I think that's one less thing on Pastor Brian's plate to have to worry about, is who's actually installing the gear, because again, it's on my shoulders. So I just kind of find who I trust and who has the best price. And sometimes price wins, and sometimes if it's close enough, it's who I trust more.
Yeah.
But I've never had to have a conversation either way with Pastor Brian on that.
Pastor Brian, how much is giving enough lead time go into the decision making, like making this easy? Because it sounds like y'all have a really good relationship. We need to find someone who doesn't have a good relationship on this podcast. But
they won't want to talk about it on this podcast, Blake.
So I'm having to reverse engineer it. Like, is getting all that advanced time, does that help make this decision? Is that the number one factor? Like giving your exec pastor a lot of time? Is there other factors we're not seeing? Because, you guys did a really good project like this and seem to have no conflict over it.
Yeah, I believe that there is a direct correlation between the amount of notice that we need and the amount of money we're going to spend. The more we spend, the more notice I need. And as those larger ticket items continue to raise in priority, we want to ensure that we have set the money aside, or at least allocated from our reserves, if necessary, what's needed in order to do that. As Zach said, we've got some great future plans that are going to be very expensive. And we're already starting to think about those and plan for those, even if it's 2 to 3 years in advance, simply because of the sheer cost associated. If there is a new room that we decided in one of our buildings, we're going to repurpose a room, and we decide that we want to gear it up, that's not a huge cost, so we can move on that pretty quickly. But for some of the things that, like Zach's talking about with our video production, that's a big deal. And so we need to make sure that we are saving towards it and allocating to it, and making sure that we're keeping it a priority, so that when it's time to pull the trigger, the big question is not, do we have the money? The big question is, do we have the bandwidth in our calendar to make this happen here?
Yeah. Brian, talk to our listeners. Some of them out there are at churches with exec pastors, and they have a contentious relationship, and they want it to get better, but they don't know where to start. What are some, very helpful, practical ways to build trust and a better relationship with your exec pastor? And what are some of the fastest ways to degrade that?
Yeah, I think the best ways to build trust is by providing an opportunity for it to be earned. And many people are just so risk averse that they won't do that. So I think that our people are capable of a lot more than they're currently doing, and they need to be encouraged and released to step into that. So the more trust you can afford to extend, the more trust you're going to build, because it's like working out. The more you work out, the stronger you become. And for those that don't work out, the thought of extending trust is exhausting. For those that don't exercise, they're like, I don't have the energy to exercise. Well, maybe you don't have the energy to exercise because you ain't exercising.
Yeah.
So maybe you don't have trust in your relationship because you're not given an opportunity to develop trust. How about we build this together? And the best way you can do that is by having some clear, honest, and respectful discussions with each other. I like to use the strategy of exploring by asking questions and seeing the quality of the answers and the amount of in research that's been done that's led to the recommendation helps make me really comfortable that our homework has been done. Because we, as Zach said, we view the money that we spend in our ministry as if it was dropped in the offering plate by a single mom who's doing her widow's mite best to be faithful and to make ends meet. So anything that we purchase, we'll take good care of it, like the things you saw in the warehouse, because we view it as the devoted thing. So the more that we can trust one another for those kinds of decisions and the heart behind them, the more trust we can develop together. The things that will erode that trust are like the primary ones, like the thing that I mentioned a moment ago, where you're coming in begging for forgiveness, instead of us talking about it and planning towards it. Or you are working around our conversation to try to garner support from the higher levels, which Zach has never done. I've been in a situation where someone would want to go over my head just because they thought I was going to be a difficult conversation. And then they club me with well, I've already talked to the senior pastor about it and he agrees, and I'm like, okay, great. Well, he hasn't heard from me yet. So let me go talk to him and then we'll follow up, but those things will erode trust, because if I can't trust that you're going to allow me to do my job as best I can, then it's difficult for us to work together. And fortunately, the people on our team, not just Zach, but in our other departments as well, have that right mindset that's needed for that we can build trust on together.
Toby, does this mean I should stop going above your head to your wife, Shelly, to get things approved on the budget?
I wouldn't.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, my wife is the yes woman, I guess. Like, she is way nicer than me, so...
Perfect. I'll keep sending my vacation request to her.
So, Brian, I feel like, one of the missed opportunities oftentimes with production leaders and executive pastors is the fact that typically they're both pretty operational thinkers. And, if a lead pastor comes to the production person and says, what will it cost to put up a giant LED wall? The lead pastor doesn't want a breakdown of the rigging and the labor and the nuts and bolts and all that. They just want to give me a big round number. Whereas the exec pastor, I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, be like, let's talk about the breakdown of this stuff and let's look at the operational cost of these things. And that's a moment to, bond together and connect over that.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the questions that Zach can confirm that I like to ask is, how much contingency is in this quote? Because we don't know what we don't know.
Yeah.
And if we're going to allocate money, the last thing I want to have to do is to go back and allocate more because something unexpected happened and we just didn't anticipate the unexpected.
Right. It's funny he says that because our church just approved a $30 million upgrade and like 9 months later, they had to come back and they were like, hey guys, we need another 3 million because we didn't estimate XYZ and then, other things didn't anticipate. Yeah. So that really does hit, Brian. Contingency.
That would have been a $33 million project because I require at least a 10% contingency before I allocate the funds.
Yeah. Not to throw my church under the bus, but exact same thing. Major building project. And I'm sure you guys understand right now, like, construction costs are a moving target.
I do give a lot of grace for that. Yeah.
Yeah. Moving up.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's definitely moving up. It has been difficult with any construction, just especially, in the last 6 years. It's been just an unprecedented increase in those costs. So contingency really matters.
So, Brian, the typical production guy, and I'm using cliches here, but they like to stay behind the scenes. They like to not be seen. They wear all black. And so it can often be, I think, in their mind, if I just don't be seen, if my executive pastor doesn't see me doing anything, then it'll be just fine. But it sounds like, the way to build trust is not to not be seen. It's to actively try and build a relationship with your exec pastor.
Right, absolutely. You can hide until something breaks, and then we're going to have to talk. I'd rather us have a great relationship before that crisis moment. So hiding is never a good strategy. The more you can develop the relationship and the working styles with one another, the better. We try to take advantage of any of the downtimes where we're able to just operate, and stay in a standard way to build those relationships and to plan and to work together to be dreaming for what is going to be coming up next, so that we can be ready. But man, don't hide. Even if it's just to say hello and ask, hey, do you have any questions for me? Or how are we looking for the third quarter spending that we were thinking? Are we on track? Because I know we don't necessarily publish all the financials to everybody. So how are we looking? Just, is there anything I need to be aware of? So that I can adjust plans if necessary. Those kind of proactive conversations when the heat is at a tolerable temperature, are really productive. It's when the heat's turned up that easy conversations become difficult just because of the pressure that's around them.
Yeah. Well, Blake, any more burning questions before we move to a tech takeaway?
It's tough because my question could be a tech takeaway for Zach. We've re-engineered our tech takeaway for this series to kind of be like, Brian, if you could tell a room full of tech people, hey, this is what your executive pastor's going through, or just like give them something that will help them engage with them better. And then Zach, same question back to you. If you were talking to a room full of production people.
No, if Zach was talking to a room full of executive pastors.
There we go. I've only had 3 cups of coffee today.
Oh, no, we've confused ourselves, Blake.
Zach, if you were talking to a room full of executive pastors, what would you tell them so that they could better understand their production people? Because my other question was going to be, Zach, what do you attribute to y'all's good relationship? Because it seems so great.
Yeah.
But I guess that will probably come in his tech takeaway. So whoever wants to take it first.
I will. The biggest takeaway that I would suggest for production people is, with the right relationship, you don't have to grovel. You can work together to identify and confirm the needs and the plans. You don't have to come in with hat in hand, begging for finances. Your executive pastor cares about the overall mission and recognizes that the Sunday morning experience is paramount to that overall mission. So, your requests are going to be given as much consideration as we possibly can. So, you don't have to come in, asking for forgiveness. Let's work together, because part of my job as executive pastor is to make sure you have everything you need to do your job. And if you don't, then we need to be talking about it so that we can figure out how to make that happen.
That's good.
Yeah, I would, if I were in a room with a bunch of executive pastors, my encouragement would be, if you aren't willing to trust them, don't promote them. Because what I need to function in my role is trust. And to the production director, if you've gotten the trust, protect it with your life. There are probably more than Pastor Brian can recall mistakes that I've made, and as far as calls with who we've partnered with or where we've purchased from or whatever it is. But I've made sure that Pastor Brian is my first stop as soon as it comes up of, hey, I messed up here. Help me navigate out of this. And because of that, I don't think Pastor Brian expects perfection. I don't think your executive pastor expects perfection. But they do expect you to be honest. And if you can come to them being honest, then you can navigate through and fix whatever it is that got messed up. So that would be what I would say is give the trust. And if you can't give the trust, then don't give the promotion, because it's impossible to do it without the trust.
Well said.
They expect communication, not perfection, would be my summation of that.
Yeah.
And it sounds like
that.
It sounds like those are some good reps that y'all have put in, right there. Like, I keep looking for the secret in this series of what's the secret to the good relationship.
Yeah.
It sounds like just being really upfront and working through situations together, putting in those reps. Well, guys, we really appreciate you both joining us. We think this is going to help exec pastors and production people work together better. Not everybody can have the golden relationship you guys do. I couldn't crack it this whole episode.
And Blake, I thought of a perfect low-hanging fruit. I think, if you're a production director out there and you're listening to this, I think it's super easy to share this episode with your exec pastor and say, hey, I just listened to this conversation and I think it'd be great. And I just, if you want to grab coffee sometime and talk about the episode and how it could help us build trust, I would love that.
Yeah, build some FOMO. Go, hey, don't you wish we were like Brian and Zach? Say it a little more tactful than that.
Yeah.
But guys, do you have anything y'all want to plug? Anywhere you want to point people towards? That's, as we wrap our episode with you guys.
Yeah, we'd love to have you visit if you're in the DFW area. Covenant Church is an incredible place. There's no place like it. So Sunday mornings, come check us out online. We'd love to have you.
Yeah, we love God and we love people, and we just want to see the kingdom grow, starting with the church, and just to see the influence of everyone in it grow in their sphere of influence. So I do agree with Zach that, this church has been here for 50 years because we have put the plans of God first and ensuring that the people have an opportunity to be a part. We take very seriously Paul's instruction, to equip the saints for the work of the ministry. And so if you're interested in actually being involved in ministry at any level, we're the right place for you because our job is to equip you to do it.
And I just want to give a shout out as well for Covenant that if you're in church production and happen to be in the DFW area or come visit, it's one of the best representations of ancient and modern together in one space. It's like the auditorium is so beautiful, and you also have great technology. So if you're living in that world and wondering how to do it well, I think Covenant's a great place to stop by and check out.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Well, Toby, sounds like we'll have to have Zach back to, Ancient and Modern is a great episode title, so we'll have to do that one. Well, boys, thank you guys for joining us today.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks for having us. So great to talk.
Thanks for hanging out with us. We hope to see you back next week for more absurd stories, tech takeaways, and overall buffoonery here at the Church Gear Studios.
All right, Blake. So back to our accents.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Good day, mate. How is that for my Australian?
It's a terrible accent.
Is it worthy of sharing?
It's not worthy of sharing, but I'll tell you what is this episode. Send it to your exec pastor. Send it to your executive pastor. Either way, send it to one of them.
Or your lead pastor. If you don't have an executive pastor, but you have a senior pastor, there's still so much wisdom and principles to be gleaned here for building trust in your relationship.
Yeah, all jokes aside, this is definitely an episode to send out. But bringing jokes back in, Blake. I ain't got any left.